The views expressed on this show are those of the host, guests, and callers, and not those of radio station KICK, Vision Communications Incorporated, its management, or advertisers. Vision Communications Incorporated is not responsible for the validity or accuracy of information presented on this program.
Attention sports fans. Looking for the best in updates and interviews for your high school sports? Well, you found it. You're on board with the Scoreboard Guy.
The Missouri State Highway Patrol reminds us to take that 3 seconds and buckle up. It's 3 seconds that could save your life. Be safe, be smart, and be here tomorrow. And speaking of buckling up, we have tracked down our hashtag Next 50 greatest athlete in Southwest Missouri history. Coach Morgan Scott, formerly known as Morgan I, maybe more known by that name as a high school and collegiate player. But Coach Scott, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Going back to Montrose, not far. I'm actually posted up here in Bolivar, Missouri, so not too far to the north, but a state champion your junior year, maybe even undefeated state champion that season. But take us back to Montrose and your high school career and some of those memories that stand out.
Yeah, it's hard to believe our state run. We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary of winning state, and so I know for us it's starting to make us feel a little old. A lot of us are getting married, some are even having kids, so it's been fun to even relive those moments. But I've been so blessed to play with such an amazing group of girls that are my lifelong friends, and every time we get together, we don't miss a beat. And I know our parents would probably say the same thing, just about how much fun the experience has been. Growing up playing together since we were second and third graders. So being able to bring our town its first and only state championship title has been very special, and I hope it'll be the first of many more to come.
Montrose, up around Lakeland area, somewhere, deep water and places like that. What was the draw to basketball? Was that Skylines had so much success, and I've talked with Kevin Cheek, and he said, well, the nearest Walmart's, 40 miles away, so the kids just get outside and play, and they go to the gym. What was it like growing up in that community, and, a relatively small graduating class every year, but what was so amazing about that run that you guys were able to go on?
Yeah, Montrose is definitely a basketball town. I would compare it to Texas and its love for football. We were such a small town. We didn't even have football, or we had a very limited number of sports. So people really attached themselves to basketball, and everyone really lived for when basketball season, came around. I think some of my memories of going to cheer on teams when we were younger. They had a sign that said "Last person out of town, turn off the lights," and so that was just the kind of support we had from the entire community. So it's definitely a basketball loving town. I wouldn't have it any other way. But yeah, so yeah, we're very much into basketball, and I think that passion just came from it being the main thing around the town.
As you look back on that run, and I'm going to bring up some games, and you can kind of recall what your memories are, but in that sectional game, you defeat Hume 68-43. Probably a team that you may have seen. Does anything stand out about that game on your way to the state championship?
I can't say that I remember a ton from that. For me, I think, and this is it was probably the quarterfinal game that advanced us to that Final Four. It was against Verona, and that game has still stuck with me as one of my favorite games, even aside from winning the championship title game, because it was a very emotional time for just our town. Like, we finally broke through the curse is what everyone called it. We busted through that wall, and I remember taking pictures after that game and seeing our parents almost like fighting back tears as they were taking our picture, because it's something that our town is just, when you have a passion for that sport and a love for it, and we had dreamt about that since we were little girls. It was very, very special, and so that's probably the game that sticks with me the most.
And visiting with a lot of coaches, they say that quarterfinal game, the one that puts you in the Final Four, is probably the toughest game, of the season. Because once you get to the Final Four, you're in the semifinals. 61-50 was that final score. Do you remember anything particular about that game other than the outcome?
I remember going into halftime, and I don't think I had scored too many points. I might have had like 4 or so points, and I remember coming out of the locker room. There was a sign or something above the locker room, and it was something about like, this is our time. It was something along the lines of that. I remember those words sticking out to me. I was like, we got to do this. Like, no, we got to make this happen this time. We're tired of this curse or whatever. And we went out and I think pulled away. I think I scored maybe 25 points in that second half. And the energy carried us the rest of the way. And, I just remember really, like, we busted through that wall, and it was a lot of fun. That was probably one of the very few games that, like, a game that brought me to tears, because it was just pure happiness.
One of the closer games on your run, the next round in the semifinal, you take on Naylor, and you get a 67-30 win. So a turbo clock situation there that puts you in the state championship game. What do you remember about going into that game? You take on Jefferson in the state championship. What was that atmosphere like? And obviously someone had to shut the lights off at Montrose.
Well, I remember Naylor. They were a very big physical team, but and I think they played a lot of zone, but it didn't really matter because we were shooting lights out from beyond the arc. I think we tied, or I believe we tied some sort of record for most threes made in a game as a team. I'd have to check the stats on that. But in that Jefferson game, we were typically known as a team that would play man-to-man defense, but we had to make an adjustment, and it was a super low-scoring game. Probably wasn't a very fun game to watch, to be honest, but we made an adjustment, turned to a zone, and we were able to get the win. And it was somewhat of a struggle, but a game never defines your entire season. It was definitely a culmination for us from us being little kids, so it's still definitely a special memory.
And then going into your senior year, still a tremendous team. I believe you just finished with one loss, maybe your senior year. What stands out about your senior year there at Montrose?
I think we still had a lot of special moments. I know me and 2 of my fellow seniors, we celebrated 100 career wins. I broke our school records, all-time scoring record, passing the great Tina McLean, who played at Nebraska during her tenure, and I believe was the first female to go on to play Division I basketball and really just kind of set the standard for girls basketball at Montrose. So that was very cool for me. She was someone who I, somewhat idolized, and still have to this day not met her, but I know she was definitely the face of Montrose basketball for a while, and my parents always talked about her. So I remember, those things, those special things my senior year. But it definitely has a little bit of a sour taste, knowing that I think we should have repeated as state champs, but I too think that, I was very blessed with the opportunity to continue playing basketball collegiately. And I think that really fueled me going into my freshman year at Mizzou, and just knowing that I had an opportunity to keep playing and had somewhat of a chip on my shoulder.
Yeah. Visiting with Morgan I from Montrose, currently Coach Morgan Scott. And Morgan, congratulations on behalf of Chevy Dealers of the Ozarks and Great Southern Bank for being named as one of the next 50 greatest athletes in Southwest Missouri history. And you're coming out of your senior year. You're obviously Montrose royalty at this time, the all-time leading scorer there. What was the recruiting like that you received? You obviously ended up at Mizzou, but what other recruiting opportunities did you have with scoring over 2,500 points in high school and the three-pointers and things like that? What was the recruiting like for you?
Yeah, so my recruitment is probably very unique to what it looks like today. I never played AAU basketball, so I never played on a travel ball team. I literally played with the same group of girls all my life growing up. So I probably didn't get as much exposure as some other kids do when they play travel ball. But I had literally two offers, one to the University of Missouri and the other was to Drury University, a D2 school in Springfield. It was a very, very great program. And so, my process kind of with Mizzou started with sending in film. And Robin Pynchon at the time, who's the current head coach at Mizzou, they were still recruiting, and they looked at my film, and they needed someone who could shoot the ball. And I may have looked a step slower on film, but they gave me a chance, built a relationship with them, and I ended up signing in the late signing period of my senior year.
So you go into your freshman year, you play in 31 games, you started 14 of them, you led the team in three-pointers, 177. What was that like going from Montrose to Mizzou, and then being able to get on the floor as much as you were and the success that you had as a freshman?
Yeah, for sure. It was probably the biggest adjustment, and this is really at any level when you go from high school to that college level, the athleticism, the speed of the game, the physicality. Everyone is probably the best player from their high school team, so you're playing against the best of the best. And for me, I was very fortunate. I got to play in the Big 12 and the SEC throughout my career, so it was a very cool experience for me. I was always playing against potential future WNBA and professional women's basketball players. So I was challenged every day, but, I luckily had a great support system in my family and my coaching staff and amazing teammates. And so it ended up being a great experience for me.
Then you go into your sophomore year and you kind of knock the door down. You lead the nation in three-pointers, three-pointers made. What was that like, and still a member of the Big 12, I believe, at that time. What was that like, and where were some of the venues that really stand out that you got to play in? Maybe your favorite sites, maybe it was because of the fans, obviously outside of your home court, but take us through some of those memories of the facilities that you got to play in.
Yeah, for sure. So my sophomore year was actually our first year in the SEC, so we did make that transition. So for me, awesome to get to play in so many amazing places with the Big 12. I know Baylor was back in the Brittany Griner days and Odyssey Sims, and so we played in front of a sold-out crowd because we just happened to be their opening game for the Big 12. So I remember they knocked us on our butts pretty good, but it was an awesome environment. In the SEC, no doubt playing at Tennessee was awesome. The great Pat Summitt had just, kind of stepping down from her role as head coach. But I do remember her walking across the court when we were at our shoot-around. So that was a really awesome moment for me and my teammates. So that's always historic. They have such a great fan base there. Obviously I should mention this first, playing in Mizzou Arena is my favorite place, obviously, in the world. We had the most loyal fans and appreciate them so much. In the SEC, too, playing in front of, Mississippi State, again, playing in front of some sold-out crowds. Awesome experience. So just a lot of fun and unique towns, too. Kentucky has somewhat of a more historic feel to it, at least in their older gym that we played in during my time. So a lot of awesome venues, just so much history. I was sure to really soak up that history while I was playing.
In 2015, you advanced to the third round of the WNIT. What was that experience like, and was that your only tournament experience?
So during my career at Mizzou, I believe we made the WNIT 3 times. So it was, always a bittersweet thing. Always blessed to continue to play basketball in March. If you're a team that's still playing, that's great. My senior year, I think we would have been really set to punch through that wall and go on to the NCAA tournament, but we had a lot of unforeseen injuries that kept us from getting there. But the WNIT was still a fun experience for us, getting to play teams outside of your conference. We went on a pretty good run my senior year. I think we made it past the first 2 rounds and lost to Michigan in the 3rd round. So, it was still a fun experience for me, and I think it was all, building blocks for where Mizzou went next and where they're continuing to go.
As you look back on your high school and your college career, who were some of those mentors in your life where you really leaned on and would really seek advice from growing up, maybe at the high school level and then at the college level?
I think, no doubt, I give credit to why I got into basketball to my cousin Trevor. He was my running buddy growing up. So he really got me into basketball. And again, me and my cousins were always playing. Everyone in our town was always playing. My older sister Lauren, is someone I've always looked up to. And she was always someone who, kept me grounded, I think, was always able to help give me advice. I seek advice from her all the time, just in everyday things in life. And then, when I went on to play college, I just think the coaching staff did an amazing job. Everyone having their, different conversations with you to help you out. They just did such a good job, and our team was so tight knit. You could really talk about anything, and we're just a family environment. And so that support was always just so great, especially when you went through, down years and stuff.
As you look back, if you could go back and talk to, a 12 or 13-year-old Morgan what advice would you give her that you've realized over the past 10 or 15 years? What advice would you go back and tell a young self?
I'd probably tell myself to have fun, have a little more fun, and it's okay to relax a little bit and really enjoy and appreciate what you're accomplishing. I think so many times when I was in it, I was just on to the next thing. And so I do think now it's awesome to sit back and look at it, but it's like I don't think I realized, what I was going through at the time. So I think I definitely tell myself to really slow down, appreciate the things that you're experiencing now, and just have fun.
Okay, now since you've left Mizzou, you've had some changes, you've gotten married, and now kind of breaking news, you've just signed a contract to become the head coach there at Columbia Hickman, I believe. What was that experience like, and how excited are you?
I'm so excited. I literally just got to work out my team for the first time. My husband and I met at Mizzou, so we're coming back to a place that's been home to us for so many years and is near and dear to our heart. And so, it's been a process, but I think we both knew at some point we would love to get back here. And when this opportunity came up, my husband gave me the blessing to go for it. And so we're both very fortunate to be coaching basketball. He's at Columbia Independent School coaching boys basketball, and I'm over on the girls' side at Hickman. So there's definitely a lot of basketball conversations going on in our house.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I tell you what, Morgan, I'm so thankful that you've been generous with your time today. I know it's you're traveling, so the Missouri State Highway Patrol reminds us to take that 3 seconds and buckle up. But Morgan, I certainly appreciate you being generous with your time. Congratulations again on behalf of Chevy Dealers of the Ozarks and Great Southern Bank on being named one of the #Next 50 greatest athletes in Southwest Missouri history. And Morgan, be careful, and thank you so much.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good one.
You too. Segments on the #Next 50 and brought to you by Great Southern Bank and Chevy Dealers of the Ozarks. And we welcome to the line Webb City Lady Cardinal, and Drake Lady Bulldog, and Nebraska Lady Cornhusker, Kendall Clark. Kendall, hey, thanks so much for the time this morning.
No, I'm excited. Thank you.
Well, again, congratulations on behalf of Chevy Dealers of the Ozarks for being named as one of the #Next 50 greatest athletes in Southwest Missouri history. And we'll go back to your high school career. You started your high school career at Branson High School before transferring before your junior year to Webb City. Talk about your memories there at Branson and then making that move to Webb City.
Yeah, no, again, this was a shock to be a part of this, and I wasn't expecting it, but it's been fun to kind of, trace back down memory lane. I think most ex-athletes could probably relate that, once you finish your collegiate career, if you're lucky enough to go professional or whatever your journey may be, it gets to a point where people stop caring about what you did once upon a time, and, things move on. And so it's, you forget about it, and as you get older. And so it's kind of been fun these last, 24 hours, just kind of think back to, my journey. But yeah, so started out in Branson with Coach Boo, and, it's just an exciting time. Growing up, you look forward to playing for your high school and playing, for that head coach and with your teammates and classmates and things like that. So it's a super exciting time to, just get started and get things rolling. And obviously that starts the countdown before you go and play college, which is pretty exciting because that was always my dream. But yeah, so I started 2 years there, played at Branson. It was super fun. Obviously, anyone that has spent any time in Southwest Missouri knows that that conference is competitive. And, especially when I was there, everyone knows everyone, and you've been playing against everybody forever. So it was fun to kind of, put a jersey on, represent your school, and play against each other. And, then eventually, for family reasons, had to jump over to Webb City to finish out the high school career, junior and senior year. And that was equally as fun. I got to reconnect with some friends that I grew up with, and played with them. And yeah, it was fun. It was a good time. And we might have had a little bit of success while I was there too. So that didn't hurt.
Well, your junior year, you win the state championship. Kind of going down memory lane. What do you remember about that run to the state championship? And this is the 10-year anniversary of that.
Yeah, I don't know how it's been 10 years, but you were right. Yeah, it was fun. We had a great team in the sense of, I think Coach Shorter probably had it a little bit easy because we didn't have to work on plays, and we weren't a team that ran a bunch of plays. We had motion and things like that, but, we had a team that had a high basketball IQ, so we could just read off each other. And that's the best way to play basketball. That's the most fun, because you just read it and you play. And so that was exciting. It was also very up-tempo, which that's the kind of style of basketball that I prefer and enjoy. And but yeah, no, definitely some of the most fun basketball that I've ever played, just, again, because of how high our team basketball IQ was.
What do you remember about that trip to the Final Four? Were there any games that really stand out to you?
Oh, that's a good question. There probably would be, and this is where I'm always like, okay, Mom, like, what happened again? I'm so bad at remembering those types of things. Obviously growing up, you dream about winning state and things like that. And I think probably just as the, final seconds were about to go off the clock, it starts to sink in. You realize it and you're excited. And so that part was probably the moment that sticks out the most. And honestly, it was probably my senior year. We actually lost at state. And I kind of remember that more. I think we got third, just because I wanted a repeat. Like, let's go do it again. You do it once, like, let's go do it again. And obviously we had jumped up to Class 5 that year, so we were going against, new people, and we fought hard that year. It just didn't happen. But I think I actually remember more about that year than the year that we actually won. So
that year, your senior year, you defeat, on the way, you get Jeff City, 49-37. Then you've got West Plains. What do you remember about that little run? And were there, and everybody kind of knows everybody.
Yeah.
Did you run into people that you were familiar with? Do you still stay in contact with maybe some of those opponents on that run to get to the Final Four?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think one of the things that, when I think back to that time, one of the things that I remember is, I've always been one that once I get into the zone, especially when it comes to shooting, I don't really notice where I'm at on the court. And one of those games, I know that I hit, several threes right at the end as the game was ending, as we were trying to make our run back to catch up. And I didn't ever really notice it. And I finished the game and everyone's like, we lost that game. And everyone, is kind of like shocked because of the shots that I was making. And I didn't think anything of it. And I finally got to my mom and she was like, Kendall, like, she asked me several times and finally forced me to stop. She's like, Kendall, do you realize where you were at? And I was like, Mom, like, I was on the 3-point line. I don't know what you were talking. And it wasn't until I later watched film that I realized how far back I was and was shooting. Like, it just did never, hit my mind. And so it was kind of interesting. And still to this day, it's like, what was I thinking? Like, why did you shoot it back there? But just when you're in the zone and you're trying to help your team, you don't think about those things. So just that's just always kind of been a cool memory. But other than that, yeah, I'd have to think about, I guess I still do keep in contact with some of the people. I'm trying to think of who would have been back then. Obviously, who else? Jog my memory on who would have been playing then.
You played Ozark and then West Plains before Incarnate Word.
Okay. Yeah. None of them, more through social media. Just, kind of keeping in touch with people that way. But it's crazy to be, thinking back to these moments right now. It's kind of fun to think about it and relive those memories for sure.
Now you come out of high school and the decision to go to Drake, where you ended up your junior year, I believe, were the Missouri Valley Conference Women's Basketball Player of the Year. Take us through that decision and some of those college memories.
Yeah. Yeah, so, making that decision, I knew I didn't want to go too far away because I wanted to be close enough that my mom would be able to still attend the games. And fun fact, she actually was she went to every single game of my entire collegiate career, home and away, even, I'll jump the gun, even when I was at Nebraska. So that was pretty special and it was pretty important to me. She, up until this, time, she can actually say that she's missed less than 5 games in my entire life, whether it was, rec ball to the collegiate games, which is pretty cool. So that definitely played a factor in where I wanted to play. And, when I got the opportunity to play at Drake, I loved the opportunity to play in the Missouri Valley Conference. Obviously, I grew up watching it with, Missouri State, now SMS back then, and a great conference. And so that was an easy transition. It was fun, exciting. Obviously, it was fun to finally be living out my dream and getting to go there. You are correct. I was the player of the year my junior year. And I think the most special moment about that was, obviously, if you grew up in Southwest Missouri, during my time period, you grew up watching Jackie Stiles. Like, what greater player to be, 30 minutes from where you live as you're growing up. And I truly believe she was a catalyst in what happened in women's basketball during that time period. And it's cool, that she's part of my journey in that sense. And so I grew up watching her play, and she definitely was a huge reason that I had so many big dreams and goals. And, in the Missouri Valley Conference, she is actually the Player of the Year trophy is named after. It's the Jackie Stiles Player of the Year trophy. And it's actually a statue of her playing. And so it was pretty cool. So, got the trophy, which was cool. But the coolest part was that was actually the first year that she came back into the conference. And so it was this real surreal moment where my whole journey had completed a full circle, right? And to me, what had started with her and this little girl with a big dream kind of ended, with, hey, you know what? I have accomplished something major, and I get to take a picture with my idol. Like, she knows my name. She knows who I am. And so that was probably one of the most special memories that I have. And I don't think that people really understand. My team definitely didn't understand it because they didn't grow up in Southwest Missouri. But for the people that grew up in Southwest Missouri or know who she is, I think they kind of understand how cool that part of the story was.
visiting with Kendall Clark of Webb City High School and Drake University, as well as University of Nebraska here on the hashtag Next50. Kendall, that being your junior year, you averaged 19.5 points, over 5 rebounds, almost 3 assists that season, and you set a conference record and a Drake record by making 116 threes that season, which propelled you, obviously, into that Missouri Valley Conference Player of the Year. I saw you score 38 points at Missouri State, or SMS, I guess, at that time. As you look back on the rivals at the collegiate level, where were some of the places you really enjoyed playing and you performed well, and excluding obviously at home, but what were some of the opportunities that you had and facilities that you got to play in and perform well?
Yeah, wow, no, that's a fantastic question. Obviously, the best place to play is at home. We always love those games. No, I enjoyed going several places. When I first joined the conference, Creighton was still in the conference. I always enjoyed playing at Creighton. Coming home, or what I would call as my, coming home game to Missouri State, that was always fun. It was always a hard place to play, too, just because, you felt like you were coming home, which being at a school so far away, also felt weird. But I always enjoyed it just because I got to see, I had people in the stands that I didn't typically have in the stands, which was always fun. And it was always a good game. We always went down to the wire, and so they were definitely one of our rivals. And, Wichita State, they have just a very unique arena. And so it was always fun to play there, but also that was always a hard place to play, and they were a good team. But I'd probably say those three were always the ones that, and then I always liked playing up at Northern Iowa too. There were a couple of others, but those were probably the 4 that you always knew were going to be really tough games. Whether we were there or they were playing us at home, they were going to be tough games, and their fans were going to be engaged. And so I always wanted to show up at those games.
Well, Northern Iowa, 2 weeks before you had the 38 against Missouri State, you had 41, your career high against Northern Iowa. So obviously you enjoyed playing there as well.
I did. I don't know why. It just there was something about those 4 teams that I was like, I just did something clicked, and I just wanted to turn it on. And part of it was just because you knew that you were going to get their best every time. And I don't mean that in a sense of we didn't get our best from the other teams. Of course you did. But I kind of had some friends on those teams too. And, they're obviously their coaches are amazing. They're always, those teams are always in the top of the conference.
Now you're going into your senior year and you get injured, and which led to, in a roundabout way, you ended up at Nebraska. Talk about the injury and the recovery, and then how you ended up at playing for the Cornhuskers.
Yeah, great question. So my first game of my senior year, I believe we were playing, I want to say it was South Dakota, and there's about 10 seconds left in the game. We were down, and I had gone in to get a rebound, which I typically am the person that gets back as safety, but was just trying to help at the last second. Went up, came back down, and just knew something wasn't right in my knee. So we finished the game, and sometimes you just know when you're when it's a career ending or definitely a season ending injury. And I knew in that moment. And so told the trainer, and he started to look at it, and we knew that we needed to get it checked out. The crazy thing was, I think I ended up seeing 4 different doctors, and each of those doctors told me it was something different. I got everything from you just need to suck it up, put a brace on it, you're fine, you have 1 season left, to you should never play again, there's something wrong. And so nobody could give me a clear answer as to what they thought it was. So it kind of fell on my shoulders, and I just knew in my gut something wasn't right. And I was like, well, let's go in, have a scope, and figure it out. And what they found was that I didn't have any cartilage left, and so I'd actually gone bone on bone and cracked my femur. And so I just had bone chips floating around, which was causing the pain. And so what they do for that is a microfracture, and I won't go into details of all that, but basically the recovery for it is you're on crutches for 4 months or 16 weeks and like non-weight bearing nothing, which obviously meant that I wasn't going to be returning. And so there was a lot of factors that played into it. It just kind of got to the point where I knew I was graduating. I had to kind of decide if I wanted to come back from this injury, and I was just going to let my body heal. I had several other injuries that I was nursing, and then there also became the factor of I knew I was graduating, and whether or not I wanted to start grad school. And I absolutely adore and love the business school at Drake. It's phenomenal. And one of the things that they really talk about is that if you're going to start your master's, diversify your degree, go somewhere else, get taught by other professors, learn something different. And I really took that to heart. And so because of all those reasons, and honestly too, just part of me was ready to start the next chapter. I decided that I was just going to go home. I already had a job lined up and was going to start that after I graduated in May. And, I don't really know why I didn't never think about this part. I just never crossed my mind that, when the school announces or releases that you're not coming back, that it like goes into the portal. But because of that, I actually had schools contacting me, wanting me to transfer, and wasn't expecting it, wasn't planning on it. I hadn't been doing my rehab. I hadn't been working out. I had, kind of already started transitioning my mind from that. And I got to a point where it was like, oh crap, like what am I going to do? And I was talking to my mom because I didn't want to do that to Drake. I had no intentions of leaving there. Like that was my school. I had been there for 3 years, was finishing up my 4th. And, but if we take a step back and go back to high school, my sophomore year, I actually had gotten hurt and had knee surgery. And it was at that crucial time in the recruiting process, where schools were making their big decisions. The big schools were making their big decisions and locking in those recruits. And so I missed that first wave of, all the big schools making their decisions, which was tough at the time, but I understood it just because of everything going on. And I wasn't necessarily performing that great because I was trying to come back from that injury. And so that's another reason how I ended up getting, to Drake. And anyways, as these schools are contacting me, my mom finally just said to me, Kendall, would you ever regret seeing if you could play at the highest level? And it just struck me. And I was like, well, yeah, of course. I wasn't naive to the fact that I would never get this opportunity again. And, that had been my dream for 20 years. And so that really, and she just kind of said, then you've got to do what's best for you, what you think is best, and just really helped put it in perspective. And it was hard. It was really hard to make the decision, but that's how I made the jump and why I made the jump. And obviously it allowed me to start my grad degree somewhere else and, play in the Big Ten. And so that's how and why I jumped over to Nebraska for that last year.
You going back, if you could go back right now and tell a junior high aged Kendall Clark some advice, and obviously I think in the 8th grade you ran a half marathon.
I did. Yeah.
And see, don't give me this microphone for nothing. I do my back checking.
I'm impressed. Not many people know that.
If you could go back and tell that 8th grader some advice, what would you give, a 12-year-old Kendall Clark? What advice would you give her?
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's a good one. I think one would be figure out, kind of how to take care of your body a little bit better sooner. And, I did the best with the knowledge that I had. Hindsight, I've had 5 knee injuries, I've had 5 knee surgeries, a hand surgery, and a thumb surgery. So I got you covered on injuries when it comes to sports related things. So just, knowing how to do that, whether it be through diet, things like that, and sometimes knowing when to take rest. I was bullheaded. I loved playing so much that I ignored that factor. I think the other part, I think when I was younger, I honestly struggled to understand my talent at times. And and therefore kind of, struggling with that confidence just because I always thought I could do more. And so I had a hard time understanding where I was, and what that meant. And so just going back and, really just telling myself, like, Kendall, like, you're good, and like you can play. And, maybe even I'm so grateful for my journey and, having that experience at Drake and Nebraska and all of it. I wouldn't change it for the world because it got me here, and I've had some incredible memories because of it. At the flip side, there's part of me that definitely wishes I would have had that confidence to take a leap of faith and, try walking on somewhere. I have full confidence that, I could have earned a scholarship. But I just, for whatever reason, didn't have that confidence at the time or didn't know how to like process that. Which again, I wouldn't change it for the world, but it's definitely helped me kind of, I do a lot of mentoring now with young athletes and trying to help them through this recruiting journey that can be challenging at times. And that's, it's definitely helped give me perspective and help ask them, questions that they may not be thinking, and tell them that it's okay. Whatever their journey is, it's okay. It's their journey. It's the best journey. So,
Kendall, as you look back, and obviously your mother, not missing any of your high school or collegiate games, obviously a huge influence in your life. Talk about her influence, and then maybe some of the coaches or the other folks in your background that have really influenced you and made you who you are today.
Yeah. Number one, my mom. I mean, she's truly been there for it all, through thick and thin, and she's always been my shoulder to cry on, or my biggest cheerleader, and I honestly don't know what I would do without her. And we had this routine before all of my collegiate games where, because she'd obviously be driving or flying to wherever we had to go. And, if I'm on the court an hour and a half, 2 hours before the game, I'm obviously not talking to her. And I always we had this rule that she had to get there, like an X number of minutes before the game started so that, I could see her, know she was safe, know that she wasn't, stuck on the road somewhere. And then I could kind of, fully switch my mind over to, okay, it's game time. And we were talking about it last night. There was one game, it only happened one game in the 4 years, but there was one game that, we're getting ready to go to the benches to sing the national anthem, and my mom is nowhere to be found. And it's a home game, so it's not like I don't know where she normally sits. And so I'm like, I'm starting to panic. Like, I can't switch my mind over yet. And so I had, looked over at the crowd to one of my teammates' parents, and I was like, I need you to call my mom. And so she's like, okay. And so we're standing in the line as they're, singing the national anthem and doing all those announcements and different things. And I'm like trying to make eye contact with, my mom's or my friend's parent. And she just mouthed to me. She was like, she's okay. She's walking in. And, but I'll have to say, she's been my rock through all of this. She's definitely been, I honestly don't know what I would have done without her, and still don't know what I would do without her to this day. Beyond that, yeah, I could go on for hours just talking about the different, not only coaches, but teammates that have had major impacts on my life. And all of them play a part into how we get here, whether it's pushing you or encouraging you or, picking up for practice, all of it goes together. But if I had to narrow it down to one person, it would definitely be my mom.
Outstanding. Kendall, promote a little bit about what you're doing now. I know you're in the Kansas City area, which is still not too far from home. But
yeah.
What are you doing now professionally?
Yeah, so I work in the insurance world. For those of you that know me, know that my mom has always been in the insurance world, so it was an easy transition to go into that. I work for a small company where we primarily focus on disability insurance and life insurance. And it's been good. It's challenging me in different ways. But beyond that, I still have big dreams, trying to figure out which ones I want to pursue, and always open to where the world may take me and what God places on my heart. And but excited, and I won't lie, it's been fun to kind of, go back down memory lane these last couple of minutes and just remember where things began.
Can you still juggle the basketballs?
I can. Unfortunately, that's one of those skills that once you learn it, it's hard to unlearn.
Well, Kendall, I have certainly enjoyed walking down this memory lane with you, and having seen you play at the high school and collegiate level, and knowing some of your background through your coaches, and Coach Shorter. We've had a relationship now for a number of years, and he told me this is one of the best I've ever coached, and and he's had some dandies there in his career. But Kendall, I can't thank you enough for being part of the show today, and congratulations again for the hashtag Next 50.
My pleasure, and it's an honor to even be considered in this group.